What is going on, everyone? Welcome back into another edition of the Fan Committee Football Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Tuman, as always, joined by my co-host, Michael Herrera. Last week, we did our NFL All-Pro predictions. We made our picks for the best players in the league. But right now, it's about the best teams in the league. Who's going to go to the Super Bowl? Who's going to win? And we missed round one of the playoffs, but we're going to be doing our playoff predictions throughout the rest of the postseason. So, Mike, how are you doing today? I know not the best week for you last week with your Dolphins falling to the Chiefs, but how you doing otherwise on that end?
I was kind of expecting the loss, considering the fact that they were going to be playing in -4 degrees, feels like -22. There wasn't really much hope for the Dolphins. We ended up becoming frozen fish, and you know what? That's okay. I was expecting it. We get a higher draft pick, and we're going to need that to shore up some important free agency players that are leaving. But that's a story for another day. I'm really excited to talk about the playoffs. I think the 8 teams left are really exciting. I think there's going to be some fun matchups. And why don't we start with the playoffs, the Packers and the Niners, sorry. And what do you think? That's your team. How do you feel
Yeah.
about them
Yeah,
coming
my
into
team
that?
somehow managed to not be eliminated despite being the 7th seed. First 7th seed to ever win since they expanded the playoffs, which was awesome. And now I was talking like, oh, Packers own the Cowboys. They always beat them. I did not think they were about to go into Dallas, throw up 48 points on that defense. This Packers team, it all comes down to Jordan Love and the offense right now because he's been lights out for, I would say, about 2.5 months now. He's playing like a top 10 quarterback. He's finding all his receivers. Even last game, Christian Watson came back. Jaden Reed has been playing great. So maybe those were the two big name receivers on the team. But honestly, they didn't do much. And I would say Dallas's defense limited our big playmakers. But then Romeo Dobbs was out there just cooking Stephon Gilmore. You had Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave, the tight ends step up. So really, right now, this Packers offense feels like it has a lot of depth. Feels like all the young guys are, clicking with Love, stepping up. We saw the offensive line play really well, limiting Dallas's pass rush attack. And then Aaron Jones, coming off a very injury-plagued season, but ever since he's gotten fully healthy, the last 3 weeks of the regular season, and then against Dallas, 4 straight 100-yard games. So overall, to put it plainly, the offense is playing great. That being said, there's no chance they're beating the Niners. I don't see how it's possible. I think our offense will continue to play pretty well. I think they'll put up a few touchdowns, but I can't go from 2 years of saying fire Joe Barry, the defense is awful, to one game where they take advantage of a fledgling Dallas team. They look better, but I'm not ready to just throw away 2 years of evidence that this defense doesn't know really what it's doing schematically, has some injuries as well. So I don't know. I don't think they're going to be able to stop just, we talked about when we did the All Pros, how many great players are on that Niners offense across the board. I think the Niners will be able to get what they want. I think they beat the Packers once again in the playoffs. That's what really hurts about this playoffs is that, yeah, we beat Dallas like always, but then we got to lose to the Niners like always. Why can't we just lose to any other team? Even Detroit, our division rival. At least they're not usually in the playoffs. Like make it something different. It's like the same old story over and over. So that's frustrating, but to end my tangent here, I'm very happy with how this first season went for the Packers under Jordan Love under center as the starting quarterback. But unfortunately, I think it's going to come to an end this week. But I'm encouraged.
No,
So
I definitely see what you're saying. It's definitely comes down to the fact that, all season, analyst fans, they've been saying that, the Cowboys are fraudulent. They haven't really beat good teams. And it would be unfair to change that narrative now because the Packers beat them. And I do agree with you that the future is definitely bright for this team once, they get a better defensive coordinator. I think your guys' offense can be super explosive if they get more time to develop, especially Jordan Love. I mean, he's got a cannon of an arm. He was doing things in that game that, that was prime Aaron Rodgers type throws, off the back foot on at 30, 40 yards. I mean, it was incredible. But I do agree with you at the end of the day, the Niners are just really good. And their offense, especially, is very methodical. And they're definitely going to pick apart Joe Barry's defense, unfortunately, at the cost of, your team. But the Niners, they usually, at least like from the way I see it, they only really need explosive plays like when they happen. They don't really like have to scheme them up, kind of like the Dolphins. The Dolphins offense was very stagnant unless you were throwing a bomb to like Tyreek Hill or, getting a 40-yard run out of Raheem. And, the Niners can do that, but they just don't need to. They're very good at moving the ball down the field, moving the chains when they need to. And, that's going to be a problem, I think, for your guys' defense, unfortunately. So I definitely do agree with your point, and I think the Niners should not easily win this because I still think the Packers are a good team, but I think they'll have the game pretty much in hand at a certain point.
I agree. I think, like I said, I think the offense will find ways to put points on the board. I think Jordan Love is, I don't think anyone can really rattle Jordan Love right now. I think Dallas's secondary, at least on paper, was better than the Niners. So I think he's going to be able to handle the pressure that comes his way. I don't think this is a Jordan Love problem. I think
Mhm.
he's been amazing. And I mean, at this point, everyone agrees with me. I've been saying it for most of the season, even when the Packers were struggling. I was like, if you're watching these games, you know that Jordan Love's doing everything he can, and there's just so many people around him not doing what they're supposed to. But now that everything's clicking, the Packers look, the way they've been. But come on, like everybody knows how deep, how successful that Niners roster is. Kyle Shanahan, let's be honest, he beats Matt LaFleur very often, especially come playoff time. So I think I think the Niners are going to win this game and defend their home field advantage here. So gonna have to pick against my team, but I'm ecstatic of what they did. The fact that they were able to go into Dallas, make history as the first 7 seed, and then just really prove that this season wasn't a fluke. The way they ended the season wasn't a fluke has me very optimistic for the future.
I mean, that's understandable. I get where you're coming from. So coming into the next NFC game,
Yeah.
Bucks Lions. I don't know about you, but I think the Bucks are gonna win actually.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. I liked what we saw from the Bucks in the Eagles game, and I know that's kind of like interesting to say considering the Eagles they clearly didn't play well in that game, and for a lot of the season they were considered fraudulent as well. But I don't know. I just really liked what the Bucks were doing. Todd Bowles, especially, is just a really good defensive coach, and we saw that against the Eagles. Their defense is really good, and I think it's underrated. And I just think the Lions, they don't have necessarily that playoff experience, so they might fall short. But that could also just be a hot take. I just think in this case the underdog has a good chance to win the game.
You raise a good point there that even though, Brady's not there, Tampa, a lot of these guys were part of that Super Bowl team. They've been there for the past few seasons. They're veterans, where Detroit is a younger team on the come up. I don't think they're going to beat Detroit though. And I think Tampa's been playing very well at times, but I think Detroit has been a lot more consistent throughout the season. And I think Detroit's offensive line is actually a bit going to be a big factor here because honestly, Tampa's like just off the edge pass rush. They don't really have anyone who jumps off the page. I mean, Shaq Barrett's still there, but he's not putting up 19 sacks like he was a few seasons ago. I think what it comes down to here is which quarterback is going to have more time to throw because Baker and Jared Goff are both pretty good quarterbacks, but not exactly guys who are going to, carry the offense. I think it's important for them to have time in the pocket to find their receivers, Mike Evans, Amon-Ra St. Brown, just moving the chains down the field. And I think when push comes to shove, the Detroit offensive line is maybe the most important component of that team. Yeah, I think the Lions are going to be. It's crazy. The Lions, I'm predicting them to be in the NFC title game as a Packers fan. But yeah, I think that's what's going to happen. I was wrong about the Lions coming in the year. I did have them winning the division, but my whole thing was this division is going to be good. It's going to be compact, and I was right about that because Green Bay, Minnesota, Chicago were compact, but Detroit pulled themselves ahead of everybody else. They weren't part of that closely knit group. So I think Detroit has proven to be consistent. I'm gonna ride with them this week. Got the Lions going further than the Packers in the playoffs for the first time in a very, very long time.
No, I definitely see where you're coming from. I don't think my take is necessarily like
Oh,
su-
I don't think Tampa's getting blown out. I think they've been playing pretty well, but I think Detroit has more. They also have more weapons. I mean, besides
that's
Evans, well, I say they have more weapons, but then we saw Trey Palmer and David Moore both catch touchdowns against the Eagles. I'm gonna put that more on the Eagles collapsing than Tampa. I think Detroit's a lot more versatile on offense.
I guess for me personally, I just feel like there's always going to be that one kind of underdog team that kind of makes it farther into the playoffs than you expect. And I know that's kind of weird because like there doesn't have to be, so I don't have to pick the Bucks. But I think if any team is capable of beating the team that's favored to win, it would be the Buccaneers. I just think they have the experience and I think they have the veteran leadership as players and coaches to get it done, especially with Baker. Even though Baker, I do agree with you that Baker is similar to Goff and that they both need time. Baker can still run the ball. He can still improvise a little more. And I
Mhm.
like that in terms of like what he can offer the team in case things start to break down. I do definitely see why everyone's kind of like rooting, not rooting, but like why they're the favorites, the Lions. And so I get it, but I just think the Bucks could make it a good game. And so it kind of just remains to be seen. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter because I think San Fran is going to be the NFC Super Bowl like they're going to be the ones representing them. But I don't know. I liked what I saw from the Bucks. Although like I do agree with you, it could just also be because the Eagles kind of collapsed, in this
Yeah.
last quarter of the season.
No, you raised a good point. We were talking about Baker when we were watching that game on Monday. I mean, I've always liked his moxie as just a leader. I really feel like I think I even said to you and everybody else we were watching, I was like, this might sound stupid, but I think every bad thing that's happened to Baker Mayfield in the NFL wasn't his fault. And I continue to believe that he's kind of proven it this year with a really strong year, surrounded by, like you said, experienced winning veterans. And Tampa, I don't think it's crazy to pick Tampa. I think they've been playing really well over the past month. And it should be a competitive game. I'll be disappointed if Tampa's not competitive. So, but yeah, I'm gonna disagree there and take Detroit. So, and we agree. You mentioned you got the Niners winning the NFC. I think no matter who they go up against, I think the Niners are the best team in the conference by far. They just got all the talent in the world and they got great coaching. Uh, that's why the Niners are making the Super Bowl for me. And I know you said you agree.
No, absolutely. And going to the AFC, for me personally, I think these games are a bit more cut and dry to me personally. I say we start with the Bills and Chiefs.
Sure.
I'm gonna pick the Bills. I think pretty handily they should beat the Chiefs. I just think that the Chiefs, although they've still been a good team this year, we shouldn't, discount them. This isn't part of their dynasty. Like this has not been a year to remember for them. It's been marred by a lot of just inconsistent play. I don't know. I just think the Bills, at the beginning of the season, a lot of people, me included, but probably because I'm a Dolphins fan, I thought that the Bills were inconsistent. I thought they were a fraudulent team, and they've really shown up in this back half of the season that they are a good team. They really do know what they're about. And I think they're going to easily beat the Chiefs. I don't really have too much to say because I just think the Bills have proven time and time again that they are the better team. And I just don't think that KC has been consistent enough to give them a good like game. I just think the Bills are going to be better, especially since now the Bills are at home. And everyone knows that the Bills games at home are very much in their favor because they're an excellent team with their fans. So I think KC's in for a rough time.
Yeah, we saw the Bills fans just how they were using the conditions to kind of, elevate themselves as a fan base so much, just throwing snowballs around in the crowd last week. I know that doesn't seem like much, but to me, when you're able to build like an atmosphere like that in the stadium, I just think it resonates with the players. I think it resonates to what's going on in the field. And I think that's going to continue this week. Listen, I think that the Chiefs got the perfect first round matchup. You kind of alluded to it with your Dolphins earlier. I think the fact that not only was that Dolphins defense so banged up, and I know you said you don't want to use injuries and as an excuse for your team's disappointment, but I'm going to say it as a non-Dolphins fan, the amount of great players the Dolphins were. I mean, come on. Justin Houston, Bruce Irvin, Malik Reed, they were the edge rushers in that game. Plus the weather conditions. I know you don't want to make excuses. The Dolphins should be able to win in any condition, but we kind of know what the deal with the Dolphins is. They play down in South Florida. They're going in, that freezing cold conditions in KC. There's
Yeah.
always going to be a Chiefs advantage. But if the Chiefs came up against other teams in the conference, it wouldn't have been as significant an advantage. I think any other year they're a first round exit. I think they drew the perfect matchup for them. I agree with you. The Bills are going to beat them. And yeah, we've never seen Mahomes on the road in the playoffs. And I'm not saying he's going to suddenly not play well just because he's on the road, but his first road playoff game. And the Bills have been hot. And even though maybe they're not the team maybe we expected before the season, due to some injuries, due to some inconsistencies, whatever, they're still been playing really, really good over the past month. They're consistent. They're on fire. Got a great win over the Steelers last week. I mean, maybe great's a strong word. They were going up against Mason Rudolph, but they were the better team. You could tell. I think they get the win as well. This Chiefs offense, it's just not what it was in previous years. And I don't care that Sky Moore is coming off IR. That's the Bills are still going to win this game.
No, I definitely agree with you. And moving on to the next AFC matchup, Texans Baltimore. I I want to say I love the Texans. I really liked what we saw from them in the game against Cleveland, and I really like their future. I think D'Amico Ryan should definitely be head coach of the year. As much as I like them, I don't think they can beat the Ravens. I know a lot of people like to say that, the teams that get the first round buys come into the playoffs very sleepy because, they take it off. But I don't think the Ravens are going to do that. I think similar to the Ravens or to the Niners, sorry, they've been very methodical with their offense this year. Their defense has just been incredible. I mean, I was not expecting the defense to be this good this year, but honestly, that's on me considering they have players like Kyle Hamilton and Roquan Smith. I should have expected it to be better. So I'll gladly eat my words there. And I really liked the Texans. I really wanted to pick them, but I just think Baltimore is just so good. And, coming back to what you were saying earlier, I do think it's going to be a Niners Baltimore Ravens, Super Bowl. And I don't know, I like the Texans, but Lamar Jackson, I mean, he's probably gonna be the league MVP. It's kind of hard to beat that with, a rookie quarterback, a rookie head coach, a team that's very young.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I don't think Houston can win this game. I will say, really impressed that they won last week because I thought Cleveland was going to win that game. And Stroud just came in and said, "I am the next big thing in this league. I'm the rookie of the year. I'm one of the best quarterbacks." And he just aired the ball out. It was a good game early too. It was like 17-14. I thought we were going to get a really competitive game, and then Houston just wiped the floor with them down the stretch. But yeah, I agree. I think Baltimore is way more complete of a team. Houston's defense is better than a lot of people expected, but Baltimore right now is just about, like you said, pretty much maybe the best defense in the league. If not, it's right up at the top. Houston, they don't have a backup plan if Stroud is even kind of altered by Baltimore's pass defense. They have no run game whatsoever. I know Singletary's had some nice moments, but I don't think they can run against Baltimore's front seven at all. And Baltimore's just is Mark Andrews playing in this game too? I believe he is.
I
I think
think I
he's
think so, yeah.
he's healthy now. So just another weapon Baltimore gets back. Just overall, we talked about it when we talked about Lamar last week on the All Pro Pod, but Baltimore's just such a balanced offense right now. And I think they're gonna win the Super Bowl. And I know Niners Ravens sounds like a chalk pick. But I mean we could talk about Ravens Bills. The reason I think Baltimore is going to beat Buffalo is because, well, A, they're going to be home, so they're not going to have to go to Buffalo in those frigid conditions. But also, as well as Buffalo's defense has looked, it has exceeded expectations considering all the people that have gotten injured. I still think that Baltimore can break that defense. And I also think that on the other end of it, I think they can get the Josh Allen. If anyone's going to force Josh Allen to make his one, boneheaded turnover he makes from time to time, I think it's that Baltimore defense, especially at home. And I think Buffalo, I mean, I think that I hate to continue the narrative of Buffalo as playoff chokers, but I just think Baltimore is the better team. People might say, well, in the past, Lamar hasn't won in the playoffs, but I don't know about you, Mike, but I think this is the most complete Baltimore team he's ever been surrounded by.
No, I agree. I think, the Ravens in the playoffs narrative is a little unfair because the last time we saw the Ravens, like, I would personally say do really badly was 2019. And Lamar was still a really young quarterback back then. He was still kind of figuring it out. He was a super explosive athlete, but was still, getting the hang of like being a thrower, really. And he's proven that now. He's an incredible thrower of the football. And I think people should stop, trying to say he's not quarterback here. He should be a wide receiver, all that crazy nonsense. I mean, he's incredible. That's why he's league MVP.
Hmm.
And I agree with you. I think they're a lot more of a complete team than any of these past, chokes in the playoffs that they've had. And I agree. I don't know if they're my Super Bowl pick because I kind of want to see how the Ravens and Niners, assuming they make it to, the championship games, I want to see how they play in those games against, the best of the best.
Yeah.
And from there, I think I'll make my pick. But I definitely understand why you're going with the Ravens right now. And they're a dangerous team, and I'm really excited to watch these games.
Yeah. I I think I'm gonna go with Baltimore over Sanford. And obviously they played on Christmas Day, I believe it was, and they
Mhm.
won pretty decisively. I understand Brock Purdy's not gonna throw 4 interceptions again, but I'm trying to me, on paper, the Niners should, I guess, win the Super Bowl because of all that talent. But I think they laid a pretty good blueprint against the Niners on how to beat that team. And yeah, Brock Purdy probably won't throw 4 interceptions again. But if you can get into Brock Purdy's not going to be he's not going to be scrambling out of the pocket. So if they're able to create that pressure and make sure he has to be really quick getting the ball out of the pocket to those receivers, as long as you're pressuring Brock Purdy and making him, if not make mistakes, then at least not be perfect like he is so many weeks
Mhm.
with that well-oiled machine over in San Fran. I think as long as that defense continues to play as well as it has, I think they're capable of beating San Francisco. And I also think even though they don't have that premier running back right now, they even lost Keaton Mitchell. I also think that obviously McCaffrey's a better running back than anyone Baltimore has, but I just think when you throw Lamar's mobility in there, they can just be physical. And I think that the Niners defense, I don't think it's been shut down when it comes to points. Like I think teams have been able to score on them at times. They've lost a few games to, Jacksonville, Cleveland. Like they're not unbeatable. even though they're so talented, I don't think that defense is, the 85 Bears or anything like that. It's a really talented group. But right now, to me, I feel like Baltimore is the perfect football team. Like whenever people talk about what football should look like when everybody's buying in, that's the Baltimore Ravens right now. And I'm completely buying what they're selling. So hopefully Lamar Jackson isn't going to, do what he's done in the playoffs in the past and maybe, play down to his standard. But like you said, it's been kind of a few years since we've even seen Lamar in that big of a playoff stage. And I think this time he's going to be ready. So that's why I'm riding with Baltimore.
No, I definitely see that, especially since, as you alluded to earlier, the Niners defense has taken a step down from where it used to be last year. And so I definitely see why people think, especially, as you're also mentioning, the Christmas game. And yeah, it probably won't happen again because I think Brock Purdy, he's a pretty good I don't mean game manager in like a bad way, but like he's pretty good at not making game breaking errors like that. And I think that that was like kind of his one game a year that was going to happen. And that is because the Ravens defense was really good, not to like discredit what they did, but I just don't think it's going to happen. So I think this defense, they're pretty great. So, if they can contain it and at least, get a few turnovers, they should be pretty good. So I definitely see why everyone's putting their stock into the Ravens. And, I think it's going to be a really exciting matchup. And I hope that that is going to be the Super Bowl because I think it'll be one of the best Super Bowls we've had recently.
Absolutely. And anytime you get the two number one seeds actually make it to the Super Bowl, it probably bodes well. But I think it's gonna be one of those years. I don't think, I would love it, but I don't think the Packers are gonna waltz into the Super Bowl as the seventh seed. I don't think that's happening. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, sometimes it might be a boring pick to some people, but I mean, just think about all the teams we just went through. I just don't think on paper, the only other team left that I could see winning the Super Bowl is Buffalo. But like we talked about, I think Baltimore at home is going to have a lot of advantages over the Bills.
No, I definitely agree with that. And, it's going to be exciting. I'm really excited to get to watch these games. We're going to have to get together and watch them again.
Absolutely.
And, I think this has been a good discussion. Hopefully, our predictions are right for the most part. Well, I guess we made a few different picks. So,
Yeah.
we'll see which one of us is correct. And but yeah, no, I think it's going to be a super interesting matchup. I think this is one of the better playoffs as well in recent memory. I think all the games have been at the very least interesting, except for the Dolphins one, which hurts as a Dolphins fan, but it was expected. But I think all the other games have been pretty great.
Yeah, I mean, there's some blowouts. So if you're talking about like competitive all the way through, yeah, maybe a lot of them weren't. But I think Houston breaking out is interesting. I think the Packers, upset in Dallas is what a lot of people were
Yeah.
happy to see that. So yeah,
Hmm.
I agree with you. I honestly think, might sound biased from you as a Dolphins fan, but honestly, Chiefs Dolphins, I think, is the only game where people can look at it and be like, not only was that not competitive, but it was also just disappointing.
Hmm.
So hopefully this second round and onward, we can get a lot more exciting games. So I'm excited to see how it plays out, hoping and praying for a Packers monumental victory. The Packers haven't beat San Fran in the playoffs since 2002. I looked at it earlier today. Four straight playoff losses to the Niners. Maybe by some miracle, Jordan Love can turn that around. We'll have to see. But other than that, I can't wait to see how these playoffs turn out. So thank you all for listening today. Thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube or follow on Spotify if you aren't already. And other than that, go Pack O, I guess. We'll have to see how it all turns out.